So let me begin this morning with a thank you and with an invitation. First, thank you. Thank you to the hundreds of you who came to welcome events this summer. We met in the chapel, in the atrium, and at City Field. We connected in the sanctuary, the conference room, in my office, during board and committee meetings, and in the most sacred meeting, the meeting after the meeting in the parking lot. And we met in living rooms and on decks, and tucked into every spare corner of family rooms and dens across Westchester. In those moments, you shared so graciously and vulnerably and beautifully. You shared stories about your relationship and commitment to this community, about powerful life cycle experiences and life-changing moments of learning, of agency, and of being heard and seen. You shared about your connections to your clergy, to your teachers, and to fellow congregants. And what a gift for me to have been able to bear witness. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for affirming and reaffirming for me and my family our decision to become a part of this congregational community. Second, an invitation. As Andrew said, for those whom I have not yet had the chance to meet, please know, I am earnestly eager to meet you. I want to know you. I want to know your names. I want to know your families and your stories. I'll meet you in my office for coffee or for ice cream if it's just you or you and a partner or you and your whole family or you got a group of friends. I want to meet you and I want to hear your stories. Let me explain why that it's my job and there's sacred power to the obligation to meet and to know each other. And thank you to the house meeting folks for helping me hone this message over the summer. In the book of Exodus, in Parshat Truma, and if your B'nai Mitzvah was in February-ish, this might have been your B'nai Mitzvah Torah portion. In that Torah portion, God is giving the Israelites instructions, building instructions. They will soon set about constructing the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary that they'll use during their years of desert wandering. God lists the gold and the silver and the lapis lazuli, the purple, the crimson threads, the acacia wood, and the dolphin skins. I also don't know how they got dolphin skins in the desert. Come in February to lift and we'll figure it out together. Anyway, tucked into the binding of the sacred pack of IKEA tabernacle inventories and instructions is this. I thought it was funny too. Thank you to those of you who laughed. You're invited back next year. Tucked in those instructions is this stunning, rich verse of Torah. Ve'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. We'll break it down together slowly. Asuli mikdash. God tells the people, all of you make me, God, a sacred place. A place that is distinct, is holy, is special and separate from other places. It's not a prefab tabernacle. You will go and you'll build it together. Together, you'll find the materials, the sacred resources to scaffold, construct, beautify, and sustain a place that is holy. It's a collective command. We can't expect someone else to do it. The seasoned in the Israelite camp can't step back and say, it's time for the new people to step in and do the work. And the new folks can't just hope that those who've been around for a long time will continue to do it for them. All of us join together, and we bring whatever we can and whatever we have. And when we do that, we build up a place to sustain the sacred. Okay, that's the first half, Asuli Mikdash. Next, Vishachanti, I will dwell. When we make the sacred place, God promises to come and linger with us for a while. Not to float high above in the heavens, but to reside with us, to be close. Perhaps you're not a theist. Perhaps God language is distancing or uncomfortable for you, or for one of the many reasons that it might be. And it's okay. We can add that to our list of conversations that we'll have when you meet me at Starbucks, Pomplamoose Project, or Emma's. But for now, I'll ask you to enter with me for a moment into God metaphor. The word shachanti, it intimates the word Shekhinah, one of the myriad names for God. This vision of God is not Zeus-like. It's not an old man with a beard in the clouds on a throne holding a lightning bolt. This is a vision of God that's intimate. It's present in the world. It's God that appears, as Cantor Danny chanted so stirringly earlier, as the Kol Ami, the still and quiet voice. It's that little tingle you get in a moment of truth, vulnerability, and inspiration. Asuli mikdash, v'shachanti betocham. Listen carefully to the syntax. See if you catch the grammatical oddity. Okay. All of you make me a sacred place, and I will dwell among them. Right. God says, all of you make me, God, a sacred place, and God will dwell in them? Shouldn't it be in it? You made a house for God, God lives in the house. But no, because we know God doesn't need a house. The infinity of the divine, whether God is a character in Torah or modern visions of God as beyond comprehension, that God doesn't need an in-laws suite in the Israelite camp. But when we set about the sacred task, when we build and create something together, then God shows up and exists between and among us. Here at Congregation Kol Ami, formerly the JCC of White Plains, you've been sacredly engaged in that task for nearly a century. Today, we mark the start of a new year and make our way to a new chapter in the story of this congregation. And from where I sit, I have a gift. I get the gift of holding a mirror to you, to tell you what I've seen and heard so far. As a newcomer to this tribe, I can reflect to you what you've said about who you are. And then we can start to dream about who we will become together. Because part of the job of a congregation is to find the language to describe itself. The sacred practice of articulation, of articulating a vision and a message of community. Surely, this is Kol Ami, the voice of my people, the place where your voice is heard. I've heard some of your voices so far, eager to hear more. But this is what I've heard. I've heard Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. I'd like to say that I came up with that list, but it belongs to Shimon HaTzadik of the 3rd century. The 3rd century-ish, BCE. So that's about 2,300 years ago. He said, the world stands upon 3 things. Torah, study and sacred text. Avodah, sacred practice. And Gemilut Chasadim, acts of covenantal love. And just as that was true for him, living in the land of Israel during the time when the Second Temple stood in Jerusalem, so too is it true for us. It's what you've done here for 100 years, and what we'll continue to do for the next 100 as well. 1, Torah. Sometimes Torah feels distant. When we approach it, it can feel baffling or beyond comprehension. Torah may seem intimidating. For thousands of years, scholars and rabbis and sages have studied and explicated it. Mi anochi, who am I? Who am I to read, to touch, to interpret? It lives in a faraway closet or a dusty old shelf. But it's not. Or at least it doesn't have to be. Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od, beficha uvilvavcha la'asoto. That's what it says in our ark. This thing, it's not up in heaven. It's close to you. It's on your lips and in your heart so that you can do it and so that you can live it. When we say Torah, we mean the broad collection of Jewish ideas, philosophy, science, sociology, vision, and hope that have sustained us for hundreds and thousands of generations. When we say Torah, we make the radical suggestion that Jewish text, history, tradition, Judaism's attitude toward collective study, that can speak to our lives and our lived experience. When we say Torah, we suggest that our tradition offers sacred pathways toward living lives of meaning and intention. The shofar call awakens us so we don't sleepwalk through our days, but return to ancient wisdom made new through our lives and experience. Kol Ami stands upon Torah. 2, avodah. Avodah is spiritual practice. You'll have to come back on Kol Nidre to get the whole shtick. But for now, I'll offer that prayer, the work that we do in here, is practice for the real world, for what we'll do out there. We practice and we practice and we practice our spiritual pursuits so that we can be ready to be present, compassionate, empathic people in the world. Avodah is sometimes translated as worship, but I think the translation's too narrow. It misses the rest of the sense of purpose that our liturgy and rituals offer. We don't do them just to do them. Rather, we engage in worship, in ritual, in spiritual practice, in prayer, to make God and a sense of the sacred manifest and present in our lives. So let me offer an alternative vision of avodah. Our translation insists that relationship is sacred. When we know each other, when we really know each other, that's how we come to experience God and the beauty of the world around us. I've heard so many stories here about powerful, life-changing ritual experiences you've had in this congregational community. And those moments, they're not just about the ritual. They were about how you and your children were seen and celebrated for who they are. They were about feeling held and loved during life's most difficult moments. They were about the collective joy of being called to Torah with people who became friends over the study table. There were stories about deep relationships you built with clergy and with friends over these past many decades, the lifelong friendships you found when you entered this community. When we know each other's names, when we know all of each other's names, when we see each other's faces, when we know each other's joys, sorrows, hopes, passions, and aspirations, that is sacred work. That is avodah. Kol Ami stands upon avodah. 3, gimilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness. Sometimes we downplay or belittle gimilut chasadim. We see them as little niceties that we do for each other. And absolutely, those are good, important, worthy for stitching the warm and gracious fabric of community. But the words, acts of loving kindness, it feels pediatric to me. Acts of loving kindness, oh, that's cute, how nice. But gimilut chasadim, it's a rich, complicated Hebrew phrase. It's less quipable, clumsier, but I think it's a better translation. Gimilut chasadim means to do, to enact covenantal love. It is an action that is an expression of the sacred love that exists because we are in covenant with one another, that we're bound to one another by virtue of our humanity. And because of that divine spark that exists within each and every human being, within each and every one of us, every single human is worthy of being treated with acts of love. That's the call that you've heard here at Kol Ami. Whether or not you can cite chapter and verse, you know the call of the prophets. It's the call, it's the things that we do to make a world that is more gracious, more loving, more kind, more fair, more just. It's that sense that we have to push and at times discomfort ourselves to ensure that all people are treated with dignity and respect. It's the platform and the foundation of our call to tikkun olam, to repair a broken world. It's our Feeding, where am I? That way? Yes, it's our Feeding America accredited food pantry. Feeding Westchester, both. Where's Sarah? Yes, both? I think it's both. Our accredited food pantry. It's our work with RAC New York. It's our conversations and advocacy around reproductive justice. It's our sustained efforts in environmentalism and a commitment to our planet. We know it's the obligation we carry by virtue of our humanity. It's how we live out this sacred human covenant through bringing more acts of love, more compassion, more peace. Gemilut chasadim do not end with thoughts and prayers, but inspired by sacred words and sacred obligations, they're actions that make for a better world. Kol Ami stands upon Gemilut chasadim. And these are the stories, these are the voices I've heard from you over my first 78 days here at Kol Ami. It's the story of your first 100 years. And it's the stories that we will continue to tell for our next 100. Asuli Mikdash. Make all of us will join together in the task of building and creating a vessel for the sacred. Veshachanti bitocham. And then, and only then, will we find God dwelling among us. We'll find meaning and intention rooted in a tradition that speaks to modernity. We'll build relationships of vulnerability and truth that will help us grow and discover who we are. We will hear the prophetic call that echoes through thousands of generations and work to build a world of justice, compassion, and peace. That's who we are, and it's who we'll continue to be. And it is what the world around us so desperately needs. So, may 5784 be a good year. May it be a sweet year. And may we be blessed to live lives of meaning, sacred relationships, and deeds to make better worlds. Join me, page 294. Strengthen us this day. Say amen. Amen. Bless us today. Lift up our lives on this day.
Amen.
Grant us goodness today.
Amen.
Inscribe us for a good life on this day.
Amen.
Hear our heartfelt words this day.
Amen.
On this day, receive our prayers with love.
Amen.
Fortify our best intentions. May we go forth today to do your righteous work.
Amen.
Oh, amen. Hayom te'amsenu amen.
Hayom tevarchenu
Amen.
Hayom tegadleinu
Amen.
Hayom tidrishenu letova
Amen.
Hayom tichtevenu lechaim tovim
Amen. Oh, amen. Amen.
Oh,
Amen. Hayom te'amsenu
amen. Hayom tishma shavatenu
Amen.
Hayom titmichenu b'min tzidkecha amen.
Oh, amen. Amen.
Oh,
Amen. Hayom te'amsenu amen.